I didn't want it to look that real. I was again overrun with emotion, and I wanted to inflict damage as much as humanly possible on national television, so I chose to go about breaking a window in a different way.
People always said he's the toughest when Goldberg walked out for a fight. The man was unstoppable. He was a monster. He crushed opponents in seconds. His streak reached 173 wins. Nobody could touch him. But some rivals didn't fold. Some pushed him past his limits. Some exposed the cracks in his armor, and some changed everything. Bill Goldberg arrived in wrestling with one goal: destroy everyone. His background came from 7 years in the NFL. He trained hard at the WCW power plant. His style was built on fierce brutality, not technical skill. Quick matches, fast finishes, the spear, the jackhammer, done. Fans loved it. He became world heavyweight champion in less than 10 months. That streak defined him, 173-0. Nobody had seen anything like it. The formula was simple: walk out, demolish, walk away. Average is the enemy. That was his motto. And for a while it worked perfectly. Every week, another victim. Every match, another conquest. The crowd chanted his name. Security had to hold them back. Goldberg became bigger than wrestling itself. He became a cultural phenomenon, a mainstream attraction, someone your dad knew about even if he never watched wrestling. But here's the problem. When your entire career depends on winning fast, every long match becomes a threat. When fans expect destruction in 3 minutes, a 10-minute match feels wrong. Goldberg's dominance relied on never showing weakness, never struggling, never looking human. So which rivals made him look human? Which ones forced him to fight longer than he wanted? Which ones proved he had limits? That's what we're here to find out. Only 5 men ever beat Goldberg cleanly in the ring. 5 out of hundreds of matches. That's why we can't just count wins and losses. The real measure of a tough rival is different. It's about who challenged the character itself, who made the formula stop working, who exposed the flaws that everyone whispered about backstage. Some rivals beat him with politics, some beat him with skill, some beat him with pure power, and one rival beat him every single day: himself. Let's go through them. All 10, from the absolute toughest down to the one that haunted him most. These are the rivals that defined Goldberg's career, for better or worse. Each one tested him in ways that wins and losses can't capture. Each one revealed something about the man behind the monster, and each one proved that even the most dominant force in wrestling history had vulnerabilities. Number 10, Goldberg's own limitations. This isn't a joke. This is real. Goldberg's biggest enemy wasn't in the ring. It was in his head. It was in his approach. It was in his body. Critics didn't hold back. They called him out constantly. Wrestling insiders made jokes. They said Goldberg's toughest rivals were the door, the car window, the cattle prod, and fireworks. They laughed about it. But there was truth behind the jokes. Real truth that hurt his career more than any opponent ever could. His ego got in the way. When he first arrived in WWE in 2003, he had a chip on his shoulder. People backstage said he didn't try to work with talent openly. He wasn't collaborative. He wasn't willing to adapt. That attitude hurt him. WWE didn't trust him. They relied on guys like Triple H instead. Guys they could control. Guys who would stick around. Goldberg was seen as a short-timer who might hold up the company for more money. So even when he won matches, he lost politically. The whispers started immediately. He's difficult. He's stubborn. He won't listen. He thinks he knows better than everyone. These whispers became louder. They became problems. They became reasons why WWE wouldn't fully commit to him. Every meeting became tense. Every creative discussion became an argument. Goldberg wanted things his way. WWE wanted their way. Nobody won. Then there were the physical mistakes, the self-inflicted injuries. The most famous one happened when he punched through a limousine window. He shattered the glass. He also shattered his arm. Blood everywhere. Damage everywhere. It was unnecessary. It was reckless. And it cost him time and credibility. Fans saw the images. They saw him bleeding. They wondered why someone so tough couldn't control his anger. Why he would hurt himself over nothing. He also had problems with weapons, cattle prods, fireworks. Things that shouldn't have been issues became huge problems. His body betrayed him. His temperament betrayed him. His consistency wasn't there. Match after match, something went wrong. Not always big things, but little things. Timing issues, communication problems. Moments where you could see he wasn't comfortable, wasn't ready, wasn't as good as people believed. The worst moment? The kick that ended Bret Hart's career. We'll get to that later. But that single mistake defined how many people saw Goldberg as someone who couldn't control himself, someone who was dangerous in the wrong ways. Critics said he was the absolute worst in the ring, that botching a simple strike to the point of ending another wrestler's career proved it. Goldberg himself admitted he was young in the business. He said people make mistakes. But that mistake was permanent. By the time he returned years later, something changed. He was reportedly more humble, more willing to listen, more open to working with others. That growth was real, but it came too late for his first run. For years, Goldberg fought himself more than anyone else. And for years, he lost that fight. That's why his own limitations rank as the 10th toughest rival, because they followed him everywhere. Every match, every backstage meeting, every moment in the spotlight. The enemy within was always there. Number 9, The Rock. When Goldberg jumped to WWE in 2003, he needed instant credibility. WCW was dead. WWE was the only game left. And WWE fans didn't care about his streak. They didn't care about his 173 wins. They needed proof. So WWE gave him The Rock, the biggest star in the company, a man who had just finished feuds with Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker, a legend, an icon, a guy with unmatched charisma. The Rock was everything Goldberg wasn't. Smooth on the microphone, funny, charismatic, comfortable in long matches, good at promos, good at comedy, good at drama. He could do it all. Goldberg could do two things: spear and jackhammer. That was it. Putting them together was fascinating. Would The Rock expose Goldberg's weaknesses? Would Goldberg's intensity overwhelm The Rock's flash? The Rock's toughness came from what he represented. He was the test. Could Goldberg hang with WWE's elite? Could he transition from WCW to WWE without losing his aura? Beating The Rock answered those questions. It gave Goldberg immediate validation. It bridged the gap between his past and his future. The Rock didn't need to win. He didn't need to look strong. His star power was so high that just facing him elevated Goldberg. That's charisma. That's value. That's what made The Rock special. But here's the thing. The Rock exposed something too. Goldberg needed that validation. He couldn't just walk into WWE and dominate like he did in WCW. He needed The Rock's approval. He needed The Rock's star power to rub off on him. Without that first big win, Goldberg's WWE run might have died before it started. The Rock gave him life, and that dependency showed a weakness. Goldberg wasn't as bulletproof as fans thought. He needed help. He needed someone to legitimize him in this new environment. The feud also showed Goldberg's limitations on the microphone. The Rock could talk for 20 minutes and have fans hanging on every word. Goldberg struggled to talk for 2 minutes without sounding awkward. The Rock made it look easy. Goldberg made it look hard. That contrast hurt. It reminded everyone that Goldberg was a one-trick pony. Great at that one trick, but just one trick. Number 8, William Regal. This one surprised people. William Regal wasn't a monster. He wasn't a political powerhouse. He wasn't a main event guy. But in 1998, on an episode of Nitro, Regal became Goldberg's nightmare. The match was supposed to be simple. Goldberg squashes Regal. Quick finish. Move on. But Regal had other plans. He used complex mat grappling, chain wrestling, technical skill. He forced Goldberg into a longer match. He forced Goldberg to wrestle. Really wrestle. Fans watching saw something they hadn't seen before. Goldberg struggling. Goldberg looking lost. Goldberg unable to hit his moves cleanly. Regal literally forced him to have a great match. But it wasn't great because Goldberg was good. It was great because Regal carried him. Regal exposed his greenness, his lack of technical ability, his reliance on power moves. Every hold Regal applied looked smooth. Every counter looked natural. Every transition looked professional. Meanwhile, Goldberg looked stiff, uncomfortable, out of place. Eric Bischoff was furious. He said Regal made Goldberg look awful, and he was right. This was supposed to be a showcase, a quick win to keep the streak going. Instead, it became an exposure. Fans who watched closely started asking questions. Can Goldberg actually wrestle? Does he know what he's doing? Is this whole thing just smoke and mirrors? Those questions were dangerous. They threatened the entire formula. The political fallout was severe. Regal got heat backstage. People accused him of trying to sabotage the rising star, of trying to undermine the company's biggest moneymaker. WCW protected Goldberg at all costs. They needed the monster gimmick to stay intact. Technical proficiency didn't matter. Following the script mattered. Keeping the cash cow safe mattered. So Regal got punished, and Goldberg learned a lesson. Technical wrestlers were dangerous. They could make him look bad. They could force him into situations he wasn't ready for. Years later, both men still had tension. Goldberg said he'd love to scrap with Regal. Regal said Goldberg blamed him publicly. The bitterness remained, because that one match proved something important. Goldberg's formula had limits. Technical skill was a hard counter, and if someone forced him off script, he couldn't adapt. He couldn't adjust. He couldn't think on his feet. That's why William Regal ranks as the 8th toughest rival. He exposed the truth. And the truth hurt. Number 7, Scott Steiner. Steiner was different. He wasn't political like Nash. He wasn't technical like Regal. He wasn't symbolic like Sting. Steiner was pure aggression, unpredictable, intense. stiff. He brought legitimate physicality to every match. And when he faced Goldberg, he didn't hold back. He refused to simplify his approach. He forced Goldberg into contests of raw strength, of real athletic aggression. It was volatile. It was dangerous. It was exactly what made Steiner tough. Fans who ranked Goldberg's top opponents always mentioned Steiner. They knew his reputation. They knew he pushed boundaries. In the late WCW run, when everything was falling apart, Steiner was still bringing maximum intensity. He made Goldberg work. He made Goldberg prove himself physically, not with moves, not with finishers, with pure force. That's a different kind of challenge. That's a different kind of rival. Steiner's toughness came from unpredictability. You never knew what he would do. You never knew how stiff he'd get. Would he follow the script? Would he go into business for himself? Would he hurt someone? These questions made every match with Steiner dangerous. Goldberg had to be ready for anything, and that constant state of alertness, that need to match Steiner's intensity, made every encounter difficult. Steiner didn't care about politics. He didn't care about scripts. He cared about winning the physical battle. And against Goldberg, those battles were always hard-fought. Both men were former athletes. Both had legitimate strength. Both refused to look weak. So when they collided, it was real as wrestling gets. The punches landed harder. The throws had more force. The intensity was higher, and Goldberg had to match it or risk looking soft. Number 6, Sting. This rivalry should have been bigger. Sting and Goldberg were WCW's two biggest homegrown stars. Sting represented the past, the foundation, the legend. Goldberg represented the future, the aggression, the new era. When they faced each other, it was symbolic. It was a passing of the torch moment, or at least it should have been. Sting's toughness came from his mystique. He had an undefeated aura of his own. He had charisma, star power, credibility. Fans believed he could have ended Goldberg's streak cleanly. He was one of only a few people who had that believability. Diamond Dallas Page had it. Scott Steiner had it. Sting had it. That's rare. That's valuable. Goldberg couldn't just steamroll Sting. It wouldn't have made sense. Sting was too big, too important, too beloved, but WCW botched it. Their matches felt rushed, mishandled. The booking never gave them time to build properly. Fans wanted a slow burn. They wanted months of anticipation. They wanted promos. They wanted stare downs. They wanted the clash to feel important. Instead, WCW threw them together quickly. The matches happened. Then they were over. No real story, no real meaning, just two big names colliding because they could. The potential was there. The clash of two unbeatable forces, the question of who would win, the symbolic weight of old versus new. But the execution failed. Still, the potential alone made Sting a benchmark. Goldberg was always measured against him. Fans always wondered who would win in a fair fight. That question, that curiosity, that symbolic weight made Sting the 6th toughest rival. Not because of what happened, because of what could have happened. Because in wrestling, sometimes what could have been matters as much as what was. Number 5, Bret Hart. This one hurts. Bret Hart's status as a rival isn't about competition, it's about consequence. In 1999, Goldberg delivered a stiff kick to Hart's head. The concussion was severe. It ended Hart's career. One of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time, forced to retire because of one mistake, one kick, one moment of sloppiness. The scrutiny was overwhelming. Critics tore Goldberg apart. They said botching a simple strike to the point of ending someone's career proved how bad he was in the ring. The quote was harsh, the absolute worst in the ring, and Goldberg felt it. He expressed deep remorse. He admitted he was young. He said people make mistakes. But this wasn't a normal mistake. This was career-ending. This was life-changing. This was permanent. Hart's toughness came from the burden he placed on Goldberg's legacy. It wasn't about wins. It wasn't about titles. It was about guilt, about responsibility, about living with the fact that his recklessness hurt someone permanently. Among peers and fans, this incident became a stain that never washed away. Goldberg could win 100 more matches. It wouldn't matter. He ended Bret Hart's career. That's what people remembered. That's what haunted him. The wrestling community never forgot. They brought it up constantly, every time Goldberg returned, every time he had a match. Every time someone interviewed him, the Bret Hart kick came up. It became part of his story, part of his identity. The guy who ended the hitman's career, not on purpose, not with malice, but through carelessness, through being too green, through not knowing better. That's why Hart ranks as the 5th toughest rival, because the pain was moral, professional, personal, and eternal. Goldberg couldn't escape it, couldn't fix it, couldn't make it right. Hart's career was over. Nothing could change that. And every day, Goldberg had to live with that knowledge, that weight, that guilt. No opponent opponent in the ring ever hurt him like that hurt did. Number 4, Triple H. During Goldberg's first WWE run, Triple H was the gatekeeper. He led Evolution, he controlled the World Heavyweight Championship scene, and he made it clear Goldberg wasn't welcome. This wasn't just in ring competition. This was corporate, political, systemic. Triple H represented everything Goldberg had to overcome just to exist in WWE's main event structure. The backstage politics shaped everything. Management saw Triple H as loyal, controllable, a long-term investment. Goldberg was the opposite, a short-timer, someone who might leave for more money, someone who didn't play the game. So when it came time to make decisions, WWE sided with Triple H. Even when Goldberg won matches, the power stayed with Evolution. The resistance stayed strong. Evolution was everywhere. Triple H, Ric Flair, Randy Orton, Batista, they controlled Raw. They controlled the title picture. They controlled creative. And they didn't want Goldberg there. Every week, they found ways to undermine him, to make him look bad, to chip away at his aura. It was death by 1,000 cuts. No single moment destroyed him, but every week, another small loss, another small embarrassment, another reminder that this wasn't his company. Their feud culminated at Unforgiven in 2003. Goldberg finally overcame months of interference, months of mind games, months of strategic barriers. He beat Triple H. He captured the World Heavyweight Championship. It should have been a moment of triumph, a celebration, the monster conquering the system. But what happened next showed the real problem. After losing to Triple H at Armageddon later that year, Goldberg was seen in the locker room throwing items, yelling, swearing. Triple H confronted him backstage, asked if there was a problem. Goldberg's demeanor changed. He thanked Triple H for the match. Then he left. The next day, he was suspended. That tells you everything. Goldberg couldn't control his emotions. He couldn't navigate the politics. He couldn't win the real battle. Triple H did. Triple H stayed. Triple H thrived. Goldberg left. Triple H's toughness wasn't just physical, it was organizational. He mobilized resistance. He turned the entire system against Goldberg. And in the end, the system won. That's why Triple H ranks as the 4th toughest rival, because beating him in a match wasn't enough. You had to beat the entire power structure. And Goldberg couldn't do that. He didn't have the patience. He didn't have the political skills. He didn't have the willingness to play the game. So he lost, not in the ring, but where it mattered more. Backstage, in the offices, in the meetings. That's where Triple H was unbeatable. Number 3, Diamond Dallas Page. DDP was the opposite of everything Goldberg faced with Triple H or Nash. He wasn't political. He wasn't using backstage influence. He was just better in the ring, at psychology, at storytelling, at making Goldberg look good while also looking like a real threat himself. Their match at Halloween Havoc in 1998 is called the best match of Goldberg's career. Unanimously, no debate. DDP forced Goldberg into a long, high-quality contest. He made him wrestle, he made him sell, he made him struggle. For the first time, fans saw Goldberg in danger, real danger, not from weapons, not from interference. From a better wrestler. DDP controlled the pace. He dictated the story. He made Goldberg work harder than he ever had before. And the result was magic. DDP hit the diamond cutter. It almost ended the streak cleanly. That moment was huge. It validated DDP as a credible challenger. It showed Goldberg could be vulnerable. It proved that with the right opponent, Goldberg could have great matches. Not just quick squashes. Great matches. Matches people talked about. Matches people remembered. Matches that elevated both men instead of just one. But here's the frustrating part. WCW didn't learn the lesson. Analysts point out that DDP proved Goldberg could be elevated in sustained high-quality matches. He proved the formula could work beyond 3-minute squashes. Yet WCW pivoted away from this feud. They chose Kevin Nash instead. They chose the cattle prod angle. They chose controversy over quality. If WCW had focused on maximizing the DDP rivalry, everything changes. If they had given him the title shot at Starrcade instead of Nash, Goldberg's career would have been different. Better. He would have gained the sustained main event depth he needed. He would have learned to work longer matches. He would have developed the skills that could have extended his career. Instead, he got political backlash and damaged credibility. DDP's toughness came from skill, from craft, from understanding how to make both men look great. He didn't need weapons. He didn't need interference. He just needed a microphone and a ring. And in that environment, he was Goldberg's toughest stylistic test. That's why he ranks 3rd, because he showed what Goldberg could be and what WCW refused to let him become. Number 2, Kevin Nash. Nash didn't beat Goldberg with skill. He didn't beat him with physicality. He beat him with politics. And that was somehow worse. At Starrcade in 1998, Nash ended the streak. 173-0 became 173-1. The method? Scott Hall interference, a cattle prod, a controversial finish that people still debate today. The decision to to break the streak was purely political. Nash had backstage influence. He was part of the New World Order era. He had power, and he used that power to orchestrate the most bankable storyline in WCW history coming to an end. The controversial finish set the stage for the finger poke of doom just days later. Many critics cite that moment as the beginning of WCW's decline. Nash's streak ending wasn't about competition. It wasn't about proving he was better. It was about control, about power, about making sure the right people stayed on top. Nash was part of the old guard, the established stars, the guys who ran things. Goldberg was new, young, threatening. He could have taken over, could have become the face of WCW for the next decade. Nash couldn't allow that. The cattle prod became a symbol, a joke, a reminder that Goldberg's streak didn't end because someone was better. It ended because someone had more power. Fans felt cheated. They wanted a real finish. They wanted someone to beat Goldberg clean, to prove they were tougher, to earn the victory. Instead, they got interference, weapons, politics, everything wrestling fans hate. That's what made Nash so tough. He wasn't a physical threat. He was a political one. He could change the direction of the entire company. He could decide when and how Goldberg's dominance ended. And he chose the worst possible way, a way that protected himself, a way that damaged Goldberg, a way that hurt WCW long-term. Nash wielded backstage influence like a weapon. And against that weapon, Goldberg had no defense. You can train to fight. You can't train to fight politics. That's why Kevin Nash ranks as the second toughest rival, because he proved that in wrestling, political power beats physical power every time. And Goldberg never recovered from that lesson. The streak was over, the aura was damaged, and nothing was ever the same. Number 1, Brock Lesnar. This is the rivalry, the definitive one, the one that spanned 2 eras, the one that tested Goldberg in every possible way: physical, mental, professional, legacy. Brock Lesnar is Goldberg's arch nemesis. No debate, no question, no rival comes close. It started in 2004 at WrestleMania 20. Both men were leaving WWE. Fans knew it. The crowd turned on them. The match was terrible, underwhelming, forgettable. For years, that's how people remembered Goldberg versus Lesnar: as a failure, as a disappointment, as proof that hype doesn't always deliver. Both men left wrestling with that stain on their records, that embarrassment, that reminder of what could have been. But then something changed. 2016, Goldberg returned after 12 years. His opponent, Brock Lesnar, the Beast incarnate, the most dominant force in WWE, the man who ended The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak, the man who destroyed everyone. Nobody expected Goldberg to win. Nobody. Lesnar was younger, stronger, more active. Goldberg was 50, retired, out of shape. It seemed like a mismatch. But at Survivor Series, Goldberg hit 2 spears and a jackhammer. Under 3 minutes, done. Lesnar lost. The upset was gargantuan, shocking, unbelievable. Fans couldn't process what they just saw. The Beast fell, the unbeatable machine got squashed, and Goldberg, the nostalgia act, did it. That moment was critical. It re-established Goldberg's credibility instantly. He wasn't just a nostalgia act. He was a legitimate threat. The Beast fell, and Goldberg was the one who made it happen. WWE finally understood. They finally embraced the WCW monster formula. Quick, dominant, overwhelming. In 2003, WWE didn't want Goldberg to destroy their guys. They wanted competitive matches, long matches. That killed his momentum. But in 2016, they let him be himself, and it worked. Fans went crazy. Social media exploded. Everyone was talking about Goldberg again. The rivalry continued. Goldberg won the Universal Championship. Lesnar wanted revenge. The rematch was set. At WrestleMania 33, they had their final battle. This time it was different. It was brutal, hard-hitting, real. Lesnar hit multiple German suplexes. Goldberg hit a spear through the barricade. Back and forth. Power versus power. Monster versus monster. The intensity was incredible. Every move looked devastating. Every strike looked like it hurt. Both men were giving everything. No holding back. No playing it safe. This was the match they should have had in 2004. This was the redemption. Finally, Lesnar hit the F5. He won. Clean. Decisive. It was over. But both men walked away looking strong, looking legitimate, looking like the monsters they were supposed to be. But here's what made Lesnar the toughest rival. He didn't just beat Goldberg, he validated him. In 2004, they failed together. In 2016 and 17, they succeeded together. Lesnar was presented as Goldberg's physical equal. That's That's rare. That's special. Most opponents either got squashed or won dirty. Lesnar was different. He could squash Goldberg. Goldberg could squash him. They were the same level, the same tier, the same type of monster. Lesnar forced Goldberg to prove himself in the modern era, to show he could still go, to show the formula still worked. And Goldberg did. He proved it, but it cost him. The physical toll, the mental pressure, the expectation. Lesnar pushed him harder than anyone, made him dig deeper than anyone, made him question whether he still had it. And in the end, both men walked away with their legacies intact. That's the mark of a true rivalry. When both competitors are elevated, when both are remembered, when both are legends. Brock Lesnar is Goldberg's #1 toughest rival because he was everything. Physical threat, career-defining opponent, redemption arc, legacy validation, arch nemesis. In 2 matches separated by over a decade, Lesnar proved he was the only contemporary superstar who could stand toe-to-toe with Goldberg and be considered an equal. Not a victim, not a political enemy, an equal. That's why he's #1. That's why he always will be. So there you have it. 10 rivals. 10 different types of toughness. Each one tested something different. Each revealed something new. Each proved that dominance isn't simple. You can have a 173 win streak and still face real adversity. You can squash opponents in seconds and still have weaknesses. You can be the monster and still be vulnerable. Looking back now, those rivals weren't just obstacles. They were necessary. DDP proved Goldberg could have great long matches. Regal exposed areas for improvement. Nash showed the dangers of politics. Triple H revealed the corporate battles. Hart created the moral weight. Sting provided the symbolic benchmark. Steiner demanded physical intensity. Rock gave WWE validation. And Lesnar delivered the ultimate test across 2 eras. Without these rivals, Goldberg would just be a guy who won a lot. With them, he became something more. A character with depth, a performer with range, a legend with complexity. Yes, he struggled with ego. Yes, he made mistakes. Yes, he had limitations. But he also grew. His later return showed humility, maturity, a willingness to learn. That growth came from facing tough rivals, from losing sometimes, from being exposed, from being challenged. In the end, that's what sports entertainment is about. Not just winning, not just dominance, but the quality of the opposition, the complexity of the challenges, the depth of the story. Goldberg's 10 toughest rivals gave his career meaning. They forced him to be better. They revealed his character. They created moments fans still talk about decades later. The streak was impressive. The spear was devastating. The jackhammer was iconic. But the rivals were what made it all matter.